very short word about myself, and then we can dive straight in. So I'm Kristof Van Tomme. I'm Belgian, originally from Sliedingen, if you know where that is. It's very close to Ghent. Now I live in Lembeke. But I've got a very, I've got a Hungarian story because my wife is Hungarian, and I started my career in Hungary, where we started also our business, and where my company Pronovix, where our company is having its main headquarters, or where most of our team are. We are about 15 years old, and the first 10 years we did all kinds of random Drupal development, and the last 5 years we've been specializing in developer portals. And I have, for that reason, I have this highly qualified quote, which is, I think that we are in the world today the only company that is fully dedicated to developer portal development. So far, I haven't found anybody to say like, nope, that's not true, because like there's companies that will build you developer portals if you ask them to, like website developers. There's some API management companies or system integrators that will developer portals, but a consultancy that only does this one thing and that has made it its own whole mission, as far as I know, is unique. The reason why we did that is because I was kind of fed up with building random sites and then like sometimes seeing customers fail with stuff that we've just developed, where it turned out that it was actually not valuable. And it's not easy to help customers to decide what features will be functional, important, and what's not going to be important. But the only way to get there is by specializing, and that's what we've been doing. We do, as part of our specialization, we've also set up a community called API the Docs, which is a community that we were about to have 4 events this year, a bit all over the world, well, in Europe and in North America. Like one in Portland, one in Toronto with Shopify, one in Bonn with Daimler, Deutsche Bank, and DHL, and one in Belgium. But then Corona hit, and then we had to rethink. Last year we had our events together with Koen in Amsterdam. We had another one in Chicago with MongoDB. So what we've been trying to do is bring together the community to talk about what makes great developer portals and what makes great API documentation. And we also organize the Dev Portal Awards, where we go look for great developer portals and give great developer experiences. And nomination will start on the 15th of June. So if you're interested if you have a dev portal and you want to nominate it, or you just want to follow and see who's nominated and what comes out of it, then go and have a look at devportalsawards.org. Now, I'm going to take one little step back, because we're not too big an audience. Like, does everybody know what a developer portal is? Probably that's the wrong question for a webinar kind of tool, but I want to talk a little bit about the why for developer portals. And for that, I'm going to take one step further back. And I'm going to talk a little bit about what I think digital transformation is about. Because a lot of people say that digital transformation is about any of these technologies. And there's depending on what consultant you talk to, they'll talk about their technology. We'll talk a lot about APIs, but I think that digital transformation really is about 2 main macroeconomic shifts that are happening right now. One is the shift from physical proximity to digital proximity as the main driver of value. This is also driving a lot of the whole API scene, is that where it used to be that you needed a local salesperson to be able to sell whatever you were selling and to create that value experience. Experience is shifting digitally, And now you need to be able to take your experience, whatever your product or service is, and provide it either through a digital interface as a, your digital product now or digital service, or you need to be able to incorporate it into somebody else's experience. Like I think Koen might talk a little bit about open banking and or a lot about open banking, and then and that is about that shift is how can you take your service and build it into somebody else's service so you can piggyback on the customers that other people are bringing to you. So that's one. That's a big shift. The way that developer portals help with that is that, first of all, you have these customer experiences that you have just through a digital interface, but then developer portals help with exposing the APIs that will bring the people that will create those other experiences that you might not be aware of using your APIs. And then you'll be able to do developer marketing and improve developer experience for now. And the other one is this shift from, and I think this is the least understood one, but I think it's probably the more, well, both of them are really important, but I am really interested in what this is doing. I think there's also a shift from a complicated world to a complex world, or a more complex world, where it used to be that the market was seemingly static, like you could make a 10-year plan, more or less, like there was always competition, but you could kind of predict what was going to happen to some extent. But now it's become much more dynamic, and now the world and the market is unmistakably dynamic. And I like to, I don't know if you're familiar with this framework, the Cinefin framework. I love it to explain this because it talks about 4 types of problems. You have obvious problems. It's very easy because you just go to the top of the mountain and you're at the top and you just keep going up and you're done. You have complicated problems where the value landscape is like a hilly landscape. So you go up a little hill and then you find out like, oh, this is not the top. And so I need to go back down and find another one and go up again. And maybe that's also not right. Or you can get an expert that will show you what is the highest top in your local mountain. And then you have complex problems, and complex problems are dancing landscapes, or dancing value landscapes, where every time you make a step, everything changes. Every time your competition makes a step, everything changes. And constantly, there's this dancing landscape where you can't predict where it's going to go exactly, but you can still build structures that help you to navigate that landscape. Chaotic problems, I'm not even going to talk about that. That's probably like the Corona just hit and suddenly we realize we're in a pandemic. That's probably chaotic. But I think that what's happening right now is that we were in this it's not super critical. It was a meta-stable state where society was still behaving like more or less complicated system. And suddenly there's all this acceleration happening that is pushing us towards more complex behavior, where like everybody needs to adapt and become complex adaptive. This is how living organisms deal with this complexity in their environment is through complex adaptive behavior. Don't have enough time to go very deep into it, but look it up. It's very interesting stuff. And I think this is what's going on a bigger level. Now, my hypothesis is that developer portals can help you with the first problem, so like getting into other people's developer experience, customer experience, and it can also help you with the second problem, is helping your organization to tune for more complex adaptive behavior through creating cross connections in your organization, through increasing interconnection, increasing interdependence, and then also increasing adaptivity. From like the different teams in your organization. So that's the why. So, but what is this developer experience that I was talking about? I think the easiest way to think about developer experience is the inverse of API friction, because developer experience is this, experience. It's a very vague term. It's hard to pin down, but friction is easy to pin down because you can like go through your journey and say, here's some friction, there's some friction, here's friction, that's what's going wrong here, and so on. And then you can like start trying to eliminate it. I'm going to leave the questions for the end, if that's okay. And then your usage of your API is going to depend on your developer experience, how easy it is to get started using an API, how easy it is to implement this infrastructure, because I think APIs are infrastructure. They're not transactions themselves. They're tools for making transactions. And the perceived API value, meaning that it's not enough to have a great API. You also need to explain why it's great and make sure people understand why it's great. So it's this combination of a perceived great API value and a great developer experience that you can tune through your developer portal, and that will help drive your usage of your APIs. But then, so what is a developer portal? So like I've flipped the journey inside out, especially for you. I hope interested in your feedback. But what is then a developer portal? I think the key is that the developer portal is an interface for your interfaces. What I mean by that is that it's a place where you collect all the different API interfaces that you have available to do certain things. And that means that you, like, a good way to think about it, and this is Matthias Büscher from Deutsche Bank gave me this concept of like a dev portal as a toolbox, where you can lift the top compartment and there's like a bunch of other tools, and like the top shelf, like in the lids, there's another compartment where there's like the most used tools, and then there's the top shelf where there's certain types of integration tools, and then like there's the bottom shelf where you have your enterprise APIs that only the people that are forced to use them are using. So I think having the ability to create different spaces and different experiences for different types of people that are going to use different types of APIs is, I think, really important. And Koen will talk a little bit about their dev portal. And I think ABN AMRO is an example of an organization that's doing this pretty good, like creating different experiences for different types of audiences that need to do a certain job. Like thinking like in terms of jobs to be done for that. Important, very, very important is that dev portals are not just about reference documentation. So reference documentation is crucial. If you don't have reference docs, people won't understand what to do with your API, but it's just a part of the solution, because dev portals should be self-service hubs, so make it as easy as possible to at least have a trial experience with a trial API. But there can also be an interface for your digital transformation initiative, where you bring together all these different components that are forming your initiative. And they're also a tool for building trust. And this is another slightly less obvious one, that like APIs are this ephemeral thing. APIs are basically just a contract. Anytime you can stop servicing your API and that contract ceases, and like you need to convince developers that when they're going to make this integration into their infrastructure through your API, that API is going to keep working, because else they will have done a bunch of work for nothing, and they'll have to re-implement with another API. So it's really important to be able to give that trust signal, like, yes, we're solid. This is not going to go away. We've spent we thought about design. We made this look like our corporate logo. This is not just a one-man show where someone, or one-woman show where somebody has just put together some scripts and thrown together a website. This is like our developer portal. It's solid. I think that's really important to give that signal. So, and why are they then important? I think the key is that they enable new business strategies. And what I'm going to go next, and that's the end of the presentations, I'm going to go through a couple of types of dev portals that we are starting to see emerging. And there's going to be some things that you might not expect to be in a dev portal listing, but I'll explain. So the first one is like this API marketplace, and an API marketplace is like a central collection of all the API endpoint of all the APIs that your organization have. Like in large enterprise, that can be a lot of APIs. It can be hundreds of APIs. We've worked with so on the left is a DHL's API catalog. It's really nice because it has this faceted search. On the right is Darren Salchuk's, like this is from a presentation that he did at our event in Chicago from Ford Motor Company, where he explained how their internal developer portal fits together. So in the API marketplace, the key function of that is to enable discoverability and findability. Second is ecosystems. Now, I've taken a little bit of controversial screenshots here because this is a forum, and I normally tell my customers that they should not do a forum unless they are prepared to have a community manager and really invest a lot in supporting and growing that community. But at the same time, in some organizations, it might work and it might be valuable to create that kind of ecosystem support through a developer portal that has the affordances that allows the ecosystem to form, and that helps to cross-link between different ecosystem players, like being partners, internal ecosystems, and things like that. Could be an internal ecosystem or partner ecosystem. Next is platforms. And platforms are sets of APIs that make something hard easy. So you take a really complex thing like sending SMSs globally to anybody in the world, or making payments globally to anybody in the world. I don't know if they have global coverage, but you take this complex problem of dealing with all these different things and aggregating these APIs, and you turn it into a platform with a really great developer experience so that people can just make one integration and they get all this functionality out of the box. That's a platform. Apps and integration dev portals, where I like to think of these, like people talk about these as integration marketplaces or something like that, but I like to think of them as dev portals for non-developers. They're like the low, no-code developer portals that creates developer experiences for people that are not developers. And I think this is also a trend that we're going to see growing. Like I had this, I heard this story from Kin Lane. He's really a big figure in the API community, global API community, where he talked. Where he talked about how at Postman they saw that some of their customers, the analysts, started using Postman collections to extract information from APIs. And basically, they're doing something that normally a developer would be doing, but now it's just a regular employee, like a non-developer employee, who's using technical affordances to do to reach technical outcomes. So I think this is something that's going to be on the rise also. Then there's market edge portals. Those are like in the insurance industry, we're seeing this, where every country has slightly different regulations, because of which you need to have like a local developer portal to target that market. Like in banking, it might be like the European Union with PSD2 APIs, and maybe certain APIs that are specific for the region. And like the ability to have geographical, like regulatory proximity, or problem space and branding proximity. And what I mean with that is creating API brands that are like a sub part of your business that are targeting a specific market. And then the last type of portal that we've seen is procurement portals, where like a Deutsche Bahn has one of these, which is a portal where your vendors come and publish their APIs, and then you build integrations with them. So like what we are seeing now is that we're getting this star system where you have like a central API marketplace and then different types of portals around it. So you get like the ability to be adaptive and to do experiments with targeted developer portals for very specific requirements. That's an interesting trend that we're seeing now. And that's my 20 minutes. If any of you is interested to learn more about developer portals and like get updates from like the API to Docs conference, like the recordings that we're publishing, that's our newsletter. Would love to see you there, and get in touch if you want to discuss anything. And that's it. Thank you. Are there any questions?
Thank you.
Thanks for the great
perfectly
talk.
20 minutes, exactly 20 minutes, Kristof. It's amazing. I timed it.
I'm sorry, Simon. I didn't see the thing about the pointer. I'm sorry.
Which pointer?
Oh, it's a private chat. I had my
Ah.
pointer on my slide. I'm sorry. I didn't realize.
Okay.
So
questions?
Yeah, does anybody has a question?
Koen, do you have any questions? Like, because you've seen some of this already quite a few times now, I think. So
from my experience, convincing your own organization that you need a developer portal is already quite a step. I can imagine that for some of these people, they are at the beginning of their journey. What would be a good step to go convince your own organization that you need such a thing? What are the things to do?
So I think the key thing that I talk about is that developer portals are not, they're basically, they're your digital business interface. They're the tool that's going to help you to execute your digital transformation program and to actually start experimenting with what kind of value can you provide out there. Like there's one aspect which is about complementing your existing products with APIs or compliance, like PSD2 stuff. But then there's the other aspect, which is so if we're ambitious and we want to be more than whatever we are today, like what kind of digital products could we put onto the market? Like how can we extend our markets like beyond the boundaries of our existing market? Like what kind of experiments can we try out there to see what's going to stick and work? I think that's one. And then the other is like if you are doing APIs, like doing APIs without a dev portal is like putting your APIs in a freezer. That's like the API freezer. I call like we had a graphic for that because you're if people can't find out what APIs you have, if they can't, you're not doing any learning. So I think the key is it's a crucial tool to be able to start this learning process. And I think this is also why I recommend our customers. Like we have some customers that are like looking at this giant dev portal projects, like €500,000, €1 million or something, like building something completely bespoke. Lots of like a giant investment where they're not really sure what's going to come out of it, but just as like a signal to the market, like we're digital. Like I normally recommend against that. I say like, okay, what if you first make an initial MVP, see how that's going to work, and then like as you learn more about your market, you iterate and you develop and you grow what you're doing, like what we're doing with Koen. Yeah. Is that a good answer? It's a long one.
More than one.
Okay.
I also see one question from Alastair 5. Yeah. Alastair 5. I'm not sure if I pronounce it right, but the question is, are you seeing much monetization of APIs via dev portals yet? So
it's awesome how you took the role of the question asker. So Alastair, we are seeing some, not too much. And I think the reason is APIs are often sold to organization as you're going to make this digital product and you're going to make money with it. That's like how often APIs are sold. It's like, because business owners, CXOs understand that story. They understand, yeah, I'm going to have a product, like a new product, and it's going to make money. And this is why monetization is almost always on the ask list of functionality, but it's always phase 2 almost. Like almost everybody that we're talking with, it's like, yes, in phase 2, we're going to do this. That said, like our first dev portal, our second dev portal that we built had credit card monetization. And then we thought like we're going to do a bunch of these, but then it turned out that actually most organizations, it's not necessary, because the API program is a complementary thing to an existing product, and it's like an extension of an existing product. So that's been very interesting to see. So yes, we see it, but it's not the way that you would imagine it. Often it's happening like a subscription model that doesn't even touch the dev portal.